everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sports and about to be joined by Ken Weed from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together, we are Kenny and Renny. This is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after, I said it in the description, a gem of a performance by the Winnipeg Jets on this night here. If there's a way to go into Christmas break to turn the page, and I know, it's kind of funny. We talk about NHL teams and the Christmas break they get on. It's like 3 days or something like that, right? But I think because everything is so condensed, that those kind of little 3-game breaks where the players can get away from the rink, get away from hockey, get out of that environment and come back, it does really act like a break. Like it's a chance for them to kind of, correct course sometimes, change, kind of build on things. I wanted to see from the Winnipeg Jets a team kind of leave behind the inconsistencies that they were showing, the kind of lack of effort that I was seeing on certain nights, the reliance on goaltending on certain nights, the reliance on just like surviving with their defensive structure and just actually coming out and playing game to beat another team. These last 2 wins, I could not imagine a 2-game stretch. If you would have told me 2 games ago, after that game against the Anaheim Ducks, that the Winnipeg Jets would be able to so sharply turn a corner and put themselves in a position where they could put behind them a stretch of hockey that was it was 19 games, 19 straight games of 500 hockey, which is not good hockey in the NHL. 19 straight games, almost a quarter of a season of 500 hockey, and put themselves in a position to entirely turn the page on that by having the kind of performances they had in the last 2 games to go into the Christmas break. And I think put themselves in position to come out of the Christmas break in the right state of mind, the right mindset, the right belief level, the right way to give themselves every kind of reason to say that stretch of hockey is not who we are. We are more like the team that started this season. We are more like a team that is capable of going and matching other good teams' best and winning games, not because we survive the other team, but because we go to toe-to-toe and match teams. That's what I think they've done with these last 2 games. And I think you take a look at this game here. It's a 5-2 finish. I walk away from this. I think it was a fairly close game in a lot of factors, except there were certain things that the Winnipeg Jets were just better than the Toronto Maple Leafs in. And I think that that's important. I think it's important because the things that they were better at were the right kind of things to be better at. Now, I'm going to say this. I thought the Winnipeg Jets did a way better job of getting to the net than the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think there would be some, if I were Craig Berube on that Mark Scheifele goal, one of the 3 goals, the goal where Kyle Connor passes it across and he gets it. I believe it's his first goal of the game. It's clearly a defensive error on that stage. It's one of those, the guy thinks he's got his guy, and then he looks to the puck and he looks back and he doesn't have his guy. The guy blows by him. It's in the back of the net. But I'll say this, the Winnipeg Jets went hard to the net. That line scored their goals right at the front of the net. A line that is very often characterized as scoring from distance because it's what they do really well. On this day, they went and didn't leave anything in the gas tank. Going into the break, they went hard to the front of the net, scored their goals in tight. That's what I like seeing. Those are repeatable goals. That's where your highest opportunity of scoring comes from. But to me, like I talked about in the past, the getting shots on net is a fast forward to being a more competitive team, because once you put the puck there, a guy's got to go to the front of the net because you have to go where the puck is. This to me was a sign of an urgent Winnipeg Jets team. You aren't going to get those 4 shots in a period performances from the Winnipeg Jets when they're playing like this. It's just not going to happen. And I'm happy for the Winnipeg Jets to see that they got to that, but they did a better job of getting to the front of the net. But one of the reasons that is they made life miserable for the Toronto Maple Leafs trying to get to the front of the net. And there was just a point during the game, and the whole game was like this, but with about 14 minutes and 5 seconds left in the third period, there's a play where the Toronto Maple Leafs throw it to the front of the net. And it's not a very well-controlled rebound by Connor Hellebuck. a lot of factors having to do with that. I'm not being critical of that. It may have been hard for him to see, may have been tipped. I don't even know. But what I do know is there's a Toronto Maple Leaf in front of the net, and that puck sits there and he goes for it. And Colin Miller is there and just absolutely makes life miserable for the player trying to get to that puck. It's not like one of those plays that you look at and it stands out. There's probably 7, 8, 9 of those plays, maybe more, maybe 20, maybe 30, maybe 40 in this game of little plays like that. But in that moment, I just looked and it occurred to me, trying to get to the puck in front of the net was so miserable for the Toronto Maple Leafs on this night. It was like running a race through a thicket. You know what I mean? Like, hey, here, let's go do a 100-meter dash. You get to do it on a wide open track. That's what the Winnipeg Jets did tonight. The Toronto Maple Leafs had to run that 100 meters, not with hurdles. They needed to run through dense brush for 100 meters to try and get there. That's what the Winnipeg Jets did. They made it very frustrating for the Toronto Maple Leafs, who I thought played a really good game. I thought they responded well to that. I thought they had a grind to their game. And what I love, again, for the Winnipeg Jets is the fact that the Toronto Maple Leafs are a really good team who were grinding tonight, and a team that has been taught to grind by one of the best teach you to grind coaches in the NHL in Craig Berube. And the Winnipeg Jets were just up and ready for the challenge and executed to a degree that they came out on top in this game. Everything, for the most part, I like about this game. You can talk one of the other things, if you are playing that kind of team and you're playing the Toronto Maple Leafs, usually on those nights, your stars have to be bigger stars than the opposition's team stars. Clearly, that's the case tonight as the line one goes off. Mark Scheifele probably, I'm assuming, Ken maybe has the answer. Parents, I would expect, we're in the crowd here. Ontario boy like him probably is going to head straight home for Christmas after this with a really good feeling and showing off for mom and dad. And I will have something to say about this later. The curse that I believe the Winnipeg Jets placed on themselves against the Toronto Maple Leafs, broken by a guy who went out today and I thought handled it well and did the right things to help break that curse that they had against the Toronto Maple Leafs. That's my take on this whole thing. Time to bring the man with the best music in the business in for his take on everything. Here comes Kenny, folks. Kenny, only one of us looks as good as that win that the Winnipeg Jets had here tonight. And as hard, as much as I believe this Spurs had, brings out the best in my eyes. It's not me. It's Indeed. You for a couple reasons. One, people were making fun of it last show. You found some amazing lighting here tonight, Ken. You look like you're glowing. You look like $1 million. You look angelic, I would say, at this time of the season. I think I could take a snapshot of you and go have something made up, and you could be the star on the top of my tree. You look so good right now, Ken. And, of course, you look good because you got the Vittorio Rossi suit rocking. It's the hitman look that every once in a while nobody rocks like Kenny Weeb does. And hey, if you want to look so good that you could be on the top of the Reynolds family, the Renny family Christmas tree, you know what to do. Head on down to Vittorio Rossi on Corden Avenue. Walk in, loudly proclaim that Kenny and Renny sent you. Ask for Frankie and the boys, and they will make you look exactly like that. Kenny, no time to waste. Launch into it. What did you see in that game there tonight?
Yeah, after not liking much about the California games, we've had a sharp turn from the Winnipeg Jets here the last two. It's interesting. I mean, they didn't have the best start, but they also didn't give up a whole lot in that first period. I think the shots on goal, I think John Shannon was sitting beside me. We had the shots at 5-2 Maple Leafs with about 9 minutes left in the period, and they finished 12-8 for the Jets. So they really got their legs going in the second half of the period. The top line was dominant, as they have been on many nights. But it's interesting, right? I mean, we talked about the need for the secondary scoring to come to the forefront, and that's what happened on Saturday against the Wild. The secondary scoring was here, it was there, it was everywhere. 3 goals at 5-on-5, from two from you had Nemesnikov line with two from or one from him, one from Perfetti, one from the fourth line with Barron, and yeah, I mean it was an impressive effort overall. Then they had the 2 power play markers, so. This is the backdrop, waiters. Thank you. It's not a carpet. I'm still in the press box here. Finished off the writing.
Waiters was
That
questioning if Kenny is laying down on the carpet, and I was going to
yeah,
say his skin is holding up well. If it
yeah,
is,
yeah.
with the
Based on the day that I've had with the writing, I probably could be laying down on a carpet somewhere. But that's just the beautiful backdrop here in the press box at Scotiabank Arena. Top line was just absolutely fantastic, Sean. This was not a one-man band kind of game. Jets, all 4 lines were kind of rolling in this one, but there was no there was no doubt left over which line was driving the bus. In this one, Mark Scheifele with the 10th career hat trick, 4-pointer. He was asked several times, off camera, if he knew how many tickets were required for his friends and family, but he didn't have a number. But we know he had a ton of buddies from around the Kitchener area. Some of those people are Leafs fans, but were maybe Scheifele fans for the game itself. Mark was asked the typical questions after the game about first time through the hockey center of the universe since the announcement of Team Canada 4 Nations. Mark handled it very diplomatically, but Kyle Connor went out on a limb and said whether he's using it as motivation or not, he's going to be on the Olympic team. Never mind the 4 Nations. That's just the appetizer. So that was a pretty firm declaration from a guy who's played with Mark for most of his entire career here. But I mean, Mark played great. There's no doubt about it. Kyle had an exceptional game, 4-point game for both of them, Sean. First 2 guys on a single team to be 20-goal scorers this year, which is an exceptional accomplishment for, those are very offensive guys, but I mean, they've had strong 2-way games. Sean, I know that you saw it. Late in the third period, again, there's Kyle Connor with a stick lift in the defensive zone on a back check. I mean, yes, those guys are producing offense, but they're also doing a nice job in the 200-foot game. The Gabriel Velarde backhand sauce pass to Mark Scheifele, absolutely all world. The play that Scheifele makes at full speed to Connor for the one-handed redirection. Yes, of course, it's Mitch Marner, a forward back on the 2-on-1, but to make that play with speed was exceptional. The goal from behind the net, great save by Wall when he went to the backhand. Scheifele sticking with it. I know Tracy O was wondering about a coach's challenge, and Sean, the reason there was no coach's challenge, they showed the overhead view. The puck was loose. Joseph Wall did not have it covered. It was sort of underneath his skate blade. It wasn't covered by the pad or the leg. Mark kept poking away at it, and that's why it counted. Jets with several chances at the empty net. Mark Scheifele wraps it up with, a couple of hats did pour onto the ice. And yeah, I just thought that line was, it was on fire today. They were really rolling, had their feet moving, generating a lot, but also not giving up a lot, which has always been the key with that line. When they don't give up a lot, they can be an incredibly sound line. Yes, they were on for the second Tavares goal, but I mean, again, I thought that was more of, I don't know that was necessarily a coverage issue for them. I thought that line was great. And Sean, we'll get into it a little bit more if I step back from the buffet here, but another exceptional effort from the Jets defense corps, especially after Fleury left the game with that looked like a knee injury. In the final minute of the second period, 5D, and one of them, Ville Heinola, playing his 10th game of the season. Those guys really dug in that third period, even though it was a mix and match special for Dean Chenoweth rolling out his pairs in the third period. I thought the Jets did a pretty good job of not giving up a whole lot. Their puck management was good. And again, the guy driving the bus on the back end was a guy that's doing it almost every night for the Jets, Josh Morrissey. 25 minutes and change again, 2 more assists, and just an absolute gem of a game. Those were the 3 stars that I had. Tavares had a solid game, no doubt. But Morrissey was exceptional again today, Sean. Classic. I'm talking all world exceptional. And again, we talk about this all the time. When you go through games in the center of the universe, teams are watching, right? The Jets come through one time through Toronto. Tons of media here, Sean, even though it was just before the break. Tons of national media like yourself along press row here.
Nice.
People were paying attention.
Nicely
Hey,
nice
that was a
little bit.
compliment. Heavy
Nice
hitters
little
like yourself,
there you go.
Pierre was here, CJ was here, Steve Simmons was here, Luke Fox was here, Zeiss was here. My main man had lunch with him. There was a lot of media in the building for this one. It was a big game.
No doubt.
All of the eight teams were out. It was called by Gord and MJ. Lots of folks. And again, I mean, Pierre wanted to see the Jets live. They came through his hometown, and I'm pretty sure he walked away pretty impressed by those Winnipeg Jets. He's watched them a lot on TV, but guys who are covering things nationally, they want to see the teams up close when you can. And the Jets put on quite a performance. And Sean, I think like you and I talked about last year all the time, Connor Hellebuck was rock solid, but for the people who thought that the Jets are a Connor Hellebuck and hang on for dear life team, that team is in the rear view. This was what the Jets have been like this year as they've rolled up to 51 points at the holiday break through 36 games. Yes, Hellebuck is the best goalie on the planet, but he's not having to bail his team out every single night, and that's what makes them a true contender, as John Garrett was mentioning the other day.
What was a hold on for dear life performance, Ken, was you and I in the last show with John Garrett, who absolutely dressed us down and took us apart. I think we've bounced back well. I think we got a hot start to this show after hey, I talk about the Jets forcing teams to question themselves, and I think you and I had a couple hard days here after John Garrett absolutely tore us down. We were like two cars in the wrong neighborhood with the tires stripped off and maybe the doors gone after he took us apart. So I think we've bounced back here. It's a good bounce back for the both of us. I absolutely like it. Before we do go too far, I want to say we probably did get a little bit of a Pristine Roofing wake-up call from John when he was on the show. I know a lot of you enjoyed that, so you know what that means. Time for us to give the Pristine Roofing wake-up call. Accept it, Kenny and I. We accepted it. We're moving on, but it also means that it's time for you to give the Pristine Roofing wake-up call to North End Rick at 1-204-981-6289. He's the guy you want coming down to your place to look after any of your roofing, siding, and exterior needs. You can also call Pristine Roofing directly at 1-204-237-7663. Ken, every show we could talk about the power play. I wanted to talk about something very specific that I thought was important for the Jets on the power play here tonight. One thing that I saw right off the bat, people are always like messaging me and like worried about Mark Scheifele's, face-off abilities all the time. And yet it feels like he usually wins his face-offs when it comes to the power play. Like he does a really good job of that, but there's something that happens before Kyle Connor's first goal, and it kind of happens twice in that shift. But Mark Scheifele gets the puck and he's looking for the pass, and quite often you'll see him. He'll either go, they haven't got the bumper open very often, they haven't needed to, but he'll go down to Velarde or he'll go up to Josh Morrissey, or he'll try and go all the way across to Kyle Connor. If he gets it through to Kyle Connor, it's often in the back of the net. And there's a one point that he's looking for these passes, and you can clearly see that Craig Berube has really, really had this team, gave them a plan on how to shut this down. And Mark Scheifele, as he's looking for all these passes, just suddenly rips one on net. Right now, it doesn't go in, but it's a dangerous shot. But what it does at that point is it forces the Toronto Maple Leafs, who are trying to spread out and take away a lot of those passes that the Jets have success with, and it forces them to collapse on the net because you get the puck there. When the puck goes there, you have to collapse. And just the psychology of that happening is the puck went there. Now we may have been a little exposed out there. We should probably have to tighten up. And what that does is there's another play, I believe, before Kyle Connor scores where it ends up being a little bit of a 2-on-1, and Mark Scheifele has it, and he's got a guy chasing him down, and he could throw it back in the slot where Kyle Connor was. If he gets it to him, it may be a goal. But what I liked about it is he took that shot, and what it meant was the Toronto Maple Leafs had to respond to a Winnipeg Jets power play that was being very direct tonight and getting the puck to the front of the net. And what that ended up doing was opening up the outsides. I was not surprised at all, Ken, that the Jets went inside, and then suddenly when it went outside to Kyle Connor, the Toronto Maple Leafs were not prepared to handle it because they had started defending a different style of power play, a different mindset, and that opened things up. This Winnipeg Jets power play can do everything. Their strength is the fact that they do everything and execute everything very well, creates different kinds of looks, which opens up different kind of looks. I thought that Mark Scheifele was a real leader tonight, not only on the scoreboard, of course, with 3 goals, but just kind of the psychology and the mindset of getting the Winnipeg Jets going direct to the net. It helped on the power play. It helped in the rest of the game. Great game by him. Great game again by the power play.
Yeah, attack mentality, right? We've seen it all year long, and you pointed it out about the second unit, how, it's more of a 1-2 pass and go, and, the Jets kind of top unit actually adopted that today, right? Scheifele wins the draw, Morrissey quick shot, tipped by Velarde, there's Kyle Connor, right? I mean, the simplification is what's made the second unit so effective. And yes, there are times when it looks simple also, and this is simple in a complementary sense. When the top unit is going, that's what they do also. But again, simplistic play. When the draw back, quick shot by Morrissey, Gabriel Velarde gets to the front of the net, beautiful tip. And Kyle Connor had all day, and you almost wondered if Wall would push across, but he still had net open, and he banged it home. But I'm with you. I mean, I thought that even on the power plays the Jets had that weren't successful in terms of goal generation, there was still a lot of shot generation and crashing of the net. And that's when the Jets power play is really rolling. Again, so that's what. So yesterday, so it's now 24-36. They've had at least 1 goal in. I mean, that's a pretty impressive number, right? I mean, that's Kelly Moore was saying 65% of the last game. So I'll quickly do the math, but it's an impressive weapon for them. And I was talking about it with Gabe Velarde yesterday, after the practice. So, the goal the other night, the Ehlers goal, when he comes up from the bottom, that was a PLD special. And it also was something that Paul Stastny would do. It was something that Kyle Connor used to do when he was the down low guy and not the one-timer on the hash marks kind of guy. So again, it's a little bit unconventional, but it gives you another wrinkle that you have to respect as the defensive team and the penalty killers in that situation. So again, Davis Payne, exceptional job with both units, and the execution has to be there, and it has been there. And that it's funny. I mean, Mark Scheifele was even talking about it yesterday. So the power play goes for a 2-week lull, and all of a sudden it's back humming along, and it's back number 1 in the league. And again, Scott O'Neill identified the areas very simply. Power play's got to be better. Penalty kill's got to be better. Penalty kill has been a little better and still has room for improvement, but the power play has been exceptional. Bottom third to literally tops in the NHL. That's good coaching. That's good playing. That's good execution. And it's one of the reasons why the Jets are sitting at 51 points at the break, which is an exceptional number. But Sean, speaking of national media folks, Tim Hornsby, our pal, was at the game today also, working for CP. Would you believe that after 36 games last year, the Winnipeg Jets had 50 points, 1 fewer than this year at the break, even though this year's team had that 15-1 historic start?
Yeah.
So again, the Jets were 4th overall last year, so we shouldn't be that surprised.
They were around first at Christmas time, though, were they not?
For a while, they were definitely first in the Central at Christmas.
After that Boston game, we all think
right. Yeah.
So that Boston game around Christmas last year,
yeah.
I believe they were first in the NHL. So, I mean, you're right. Crazy start to the season, and this is the one thing that like a lot of the people talk about, like the 19 games before this. Now the Jets in their last 20 games are 1 game above 500 in that 20-game stretch. So it's taken a pretty significant fall by the Winnipeg Jets to be in a position where they were last year. But Ken, when you did say
also
that,
still 7-2-1 though in the last 10, so they have
no doubt
rectified that issue.
No doubt. And I will say this, when you said that, I was surprised. When you said that they were where they were last year, it was surprising, even with them going just 1 game above 500 in their last 20. But I wanted to turn to a couple different things. One of them is this comment by Doug Henderson, who says he thinks it's a hot take, Hellebuck for the Hart Trophy. I don't think this is. I want to have a quick conversation about this, but I also want to give him a shout out and say, Doug Henderson, not a hot take at all. Get out of my hot tub in my backyard right now, because there's no such thing as a cold take in an Arctic Spas hot tub. And this is a great take, which means you must be back there chilling out in my Arctic Spas hot tub, that of course has the Spa Boy package. So if you want great takes like Doug Henderson brought up here, you know what you need to do. Head on over to Arctic Spas, ask for my boy Dustin, and he will hook you up right to make sure that those icy cold takes that so many of you are plagued by in our chat room, you can just melt those away. The kind of hot tub that does everything just shy of Kenny's hot tub time
Doug
machine.
might have a key made. I think he's been in there a few times.
He keeps getting in there. That's what he said. Okay, so I'm going to say this. Last year, I've always thought that this was a little bit of everyone favors their own guys. Everyone likes their own guys. I've seen that Connor Hellebuck for Hart Trophy take in our chat room in years past. I've always thought it was kind of ridiculous. And I think it's because for the most part, a goalie needs to do something outlandish to win that award, right? Because basically what you're seeing from a lot of these, like, I just don't think goaltenders are provided the opportunity to show out to the level of being a Hart Trophy candidate unless their team is a really, really bad team in front of them. And to your point, Ken, like tonight, the most challenging part of my job tonight is going to be a keg save of the game, because for me, honestly,
I got one, buddy.
Nothing stands out. It doesn't really stand out.
There was an early one. There was an early two, actually.
Regardless, this is a night where they make Connor Hellebuck's job pretty darn easy on him. And the times where they did fall apart, on the second Tavares goal, it's, or on the first Tavares goal, those don't get stopped, right? So, but I will say this, like, leading in all the categories that he's leading in, what I'm not seeing for the most part is I'm not seeing any kind of falter from Connor Hellebuck this year. And I've said this before, I think he's always been really good at games where the Jets get lit up, but he keeps them in the game, or sometimes wins those games for them. But in the games where the Jets defense is just playing really, really sound, and he's still really good in the moments behind that, I'm seeing a consistency to Connor Hellebuck's game that I don't believe I've ever seen before. And that's saying a lot, because I think he was damn consistent for a while. I just think he's taken it to another level. I think right now, this is the best version of Connor Hellebuck we've ever seen before. He's playing the best hockey of his career. I think you need to. I think for sure he's in the top 5 conversation right now of players who would be up for the Hart Trophy. And I'm going to tell you this, like, I got one of those guys would be Kirill Kaprizov, and I think that he's ahead of Kirill Kaprizov in how he's played this year. So this would be a year where in years past I would be like, Jets fans, you're, like, take off the aviator tinted glasses here. Okay. It's just not all about your own team. This is a time this year that I think if there is not a serious conversation around the league about including Connor Hellebuck in Hart Trophy consideration, people aren't doing their jobs.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair. I mean, Sean, I'm going to say this isn't a parallel to me, but this is sort of, it's reminiscent to me of the year where, I mean, you were there, you were standing beside me when I asked Jared Bednar about the year where it was basically McKinnon versus Rantanen. We've talked about the vote splitting in the past when it comes to Leon and Connor, right? With McDavid and Draisaitl. But that year, a couple of years ago, McKinnon missed, I think, 12 games, had more points per game, but Rantanen carried the load when he was gone. So I was really torn, and Jared didn't give me a definitive answer, and I didn't expect him to. But when I explained my side of the equation as to why I was leaning Rantanen, he's like, well, that makes sense in some ways, right? So I'm not saying it's a natural fit here, but Sean, I think Connor's biggest problem is that I'm not saying it's necessarily vote splitting with Kyle Connor or Mark Scheifele, but those guys are really elite players. So that's not to take anything away from what Hellebuck is doing. But like you said, because the Jets are much more sound defensively, and I also think this is where the big and boring kind of hurts Connor Hellebuck, because he's not on the highlights every night, and the folks in the like I said, this is not blaming Eastern bias because I'm in the East here in Toronto today, but because Connor Hellebuck's not in the top 100 saves of the year because most of his saves are because he's so positionally sound, I don't know that he's going to attract the attention when it comes to the voting. Though I agree with you, I think he should. And I mean, again, it's always more than the numbers, the simple numbers when it comes to Hellebuck, but the numbers are ridiculous again right now this year. He's just barely over 2 for goals against average. His save percentage is as strong as it's been, 207 goals against, Sean, 927. That's 10 points over his career average of 917, which is already an exceptionally high number. So, yeah, I mean, I'm with you right now. If the voting were today, Hellebuck is definitely in the top 3, and he probably should be one on a lot of ballots, right? So I couldn't agree with you more. And like I said, I mean, it doesn't hurt him that that Scheifele and Connor are having such a great year, but I just think that some people are going to need convincing, though not the people that watch him every day. They're not the ones who will need the convincing.
All right. Hey, it's been called for far too many times here. So, hey, it is time to make this a Christmas edition. I don't have a Christmas headband, but this is going to have to do.
Not yet. Not yet.
I've been calling for it, but let's make this a Sean's headband version of the Kenny and Renny show. Okay, Kenny, I want to dive into the 3 different players on the top line, but I'm going to do this again. The payoff of for this team is, I know that the top line is not perfect. I know a lot of people point that out. I know underlying numbers, all these kind of things, but let's be honest with ourselves. The vast majority of teams in the league would kill to have a top line that executes and scores the way that top line does. So once again, for all the calls early in the season to break up this line, has it ever paid off for Scott Arniel to have patience with that line and give it the time to kind of figure out its 5-on-5 issues at first? And hey, I'm not under any illusions that that's all gone by the wayside, but as long as they keep scoring the way they are and showing up in games like this the way they have and showing up in the moments as they've really been doing in this last stretch that Ken is talking about, 7-2-1, and just winning games over and over and over for the Winnipeg Jets, there is no doubt keeping that line together has paid off. And if you're looking to pay off high interest credit cards or debt, we suggest you go talk to our friends at Cambridge Credit Union about their payoff loan. They can show you how taking out a loan to pay off your debt actually gets you debt-free faster, and you can save thousands of dollars. Go to cambrian.mb.ca to book an appointment online. Ken, I'm just going to take one guy. You can build on him if you want to, or you can go on to the next guy, but I'm just going to point out, I think my take on Mark Scheifele's passing reaching another level this year, that pass that he makes to Kyle Connor, there is an extremely and absurdly and obscenely tiny window for him to get that pass through. It requires him being able to free himself to get that pass from the defenseman who's trying to block the passing lane. It takes him getting that kind of snap that he had on the puck, and it takes him to be precisely accurate to pull that off. I've said this before. He does not agree with me. I think his passing level has reached very close to peak Blake Wheeler, who at the time I think was the best passer in the NHL for a stretch of time. Mark Scheifele, the fact that he's able to go out in a game like this and distribute the puck the way that he's doing so, and yet go out and find ways to score a hat trick on top of that. Mark Scheifele, I'll stay by this. Like I had said earlier, I thought he was going to represent Team Canada. Clearly, I was wrong about that. Or was I? I was wrong that he would be on that team. I don't know that I'm wrong, Ken, that he should not be on that team.
Yeah, I mean, it's both of our thoughts are pretty clear, right? And when I wasn't ready to stand on the ledge beside you and say it was a lead pipe lock that Scheifele was on the team, it wasn't that I didn't deserve he believed, or I didn't believe he deserved to be on the team. I did, and I still do believe he should have been on the team. And maybe that changes with the last second edition, but we'll see what happens. But I think that Mark's a smart guy. He hears what's going around, and we're never going to get a reason why Mark wasn't on the team. But what Mark has done is used that as fuel. Even though he's said all the right things, he was disappointed, but just wants to do well for his team. Guess what? What Mark Scheifele needs to do is to play the way that he has since the announcement and try to take his team on a playoff run like he did in 2018 when the Jets reached the conference final. Because when you play winning hockey, you get chosen to play on best tournaments. And I agree with you. I think he deserved to be on the team. And I think he is, in a lot of the big market showdowns since that time, he has shown the folks at Hockey Canada that he's shown them why he was in consideration right until the very end. But I think he's also showing them that the things that you and I talked about, his passing ability, his quick release shooting ability, his improved 200-foot game that John Cooper pointed out back in November, all of those things have been on display for the world to see, not just for Team Canada to see, for the entire NHL to see. And again, it's about doing it throughout the course of the year. It's about doing it in the playoffs when it matters. And if Mark continues to do that, Kyle Connor is going to be bang on. Mark's going to be in the Olympics if he keeps playing at this level. I have no doubt in my mind. I recognize Macklin Celebrini's having a great year, everything else. But Mark Scheifele is a guy that's going to be getting further international competition at some point here. And I don't think it will be for Team Canada at the World Championship.
I wanted to touch on this quickly here. Where is this?
And sorry, quickly, I just want for the folks who didn't see it, Sean, post game. I mean, I asked Mark about that, a 2-on-1. I asked if he knew it was Marner back. He said yes, but he thought that Kyle Connor was going to be opening up for a one-timer. He didn't think he was going back post for the redirection at first. But this is the beauty of the non-verbal communication, Sean, which is like when we talk about chemistry. And again, I'm not taking a run at analytics here by any stretch of the imagination.
Not like John did in the last show anyway.
but what I am going to tell you, Sean, is that you cannot measure some of the things that happen between the ears. And that is one of them. And both players admitted it basically in the post. At a normal time, if you're going down on a 2-on-1 against an opposing forward, even an opposing forward like Mitch Marner, who is a very smart defensive player, you're expecting Marner to overcommit going backwards and maybe leave open the cross ice 1T. What you're not expecting is that Kyle Connor in real time recognizes that play has been taken away and then blows by him backdoor to get his stick down for a redirection. And Scheifele, again, he's done this a few times, Sean, but his ability to freeze Marner on that play, find the seam, and put it in a perfect place for the backhanded redirection. This is high level, chess type of material for you, right? I mean, not a lot of players in the NHL are making that play. And that reinforces what you're saying about his passing ability. He got to the net hard. And Sean, honestly, the offense was impressive. I'm going to tell you right now, Mark's ability to not back, the Leafs wanted to make this hard on Mark. Philippe Myers basically punched him in the face on that one zone entry. What happened to Mark? He didn't go away. He went back at him the entire game. Like it seemed very evident to me that Craig Berube and whoever's running the Leafs defense, they told their defense to be hard on that top line and get in their face. It didn't scare them one bit in this game. And, Mike Van Ryan, I think, is running the D here. So I'm just saying, I was impressed by the offense. I'm also impressed that they didn't back down one bit and they got to the hard areas. And that's where the goals were scored. Right. You talked about that pass. I mean, the pass that gave Velarde the backhand sauce play to Scheifele, that's all world. But his lane was open. Mark had to get this through a very, very tight window in order to make that happen. So anyways, I'm impressed by all those things. And yeah, I mean, Scheifele was on his game, friends and family in from Kitchener. He's probably getting ready to sit down at dinner time.
Yep.
Early Christmas dinner. Same with Cole Perfetti. So those guys, and Scott O'Neill said it. He knew Mark Scheifele would be fired up for this game. and he kind of handed over a little Christmas gift to his friends and family that were here by having one of his best games of the year.
I'll just say this quickly. Gabe Velarde thought he had an absolutely phenomenal game. Love the way he went to them. That pass to Scheifele's is actually the nicest pass of the game. And Kyle Connor, I think right now, as far as speed players are concerned in the NHL, may be using his speed better than anyone in the NHL not named Connor McDavid or Nathan McKinnon. Like the way that he's able to straight line beat guys, the way that he's able to back guys off and curl and open up space, the way that he did on that Mark Scheifele goal a couple games ago against the Anaheim Ducks, the way he's able to just like make guys think that he's going in a certain direction and then just quickly dart into a different direction to open up space for himself on the ice. When you shoot like he does, it's all about finding space on the ice. It's what makes him, his speed, such a dangerous shooter, but it's also what makes him a dangerous guy driving the net when he does that, which I love seeing when he gets doing that. I think he needs to do it more and more. And I think it's also what allows him the kind of room to make the passes that he's done this year. He has really opened up every part of his game, and it's all predicated on his speed. I think he does a really good job of it. I wanted to pivot quickly before we should, though. It's say something nice about Ville Heinola time. I thought he had a really, really great game. I think SK out in
I got it.
out at a bar. Yeah, he says still waiting for Renny. Time to say something nice about Ville. Couple plays here tonight. There was one that Ville came out. He was in the back corner right when Toronto was starting to press down 3, I think, and he took it along the boards, and guys kind of collapsed on him, and he gave it away. And I was thinking to myself, this is one of the plays that he's struggled with over his time with the up playing with the Jets. And then he just went out and got the puck back. I really like that. And then there's another time that the Toronto Maple Leafs are having a ton of success bottling the Jets up in their near corner. And Ville goes in, gets the puck, pulls it to a spot where the other guys can't get it, and no look backhand passes it to a Jets player who's right kind of behind him, just off the side of the slot, kind of bottom of the circle, and it ends up going the other way. It's one of the times Josh Morrissey made a rush down ice, and it was an odd man rush. Didn't end up being that great of a scoring chance, but it definitely caught Toronto a little bit with their pants down in the wrong spot. That was just, okay, what Ville Heinola is supposed to be really good at and what he's supposed to hit at the NHL level is puck moving. And a lot of times to be a good puck mover, you just have to be a really, really smart guy, and you have to be aware of where guys are. If I'm taking a look at this game in the last number of games for Ville Heinola, what I'm starting to see, Ken, is a player who's getting sharper and sharper at seeing where the guys are on the ice and understanding the plays he needs to do without, I think earlier in his career, he's had a tendency to say, oh, I think a guy's going to be here, and throw it there. And it ends up being a turnover, and it ends up being problematic. I think what we're starting to see more and more from Ville Heinola is he's like, not, I think there's a guy here, so I'm going to put it there. It's more like, I know there's a guy here and I'm going to get the puck there. And the more we see of that, the more you're going to see this player showing out. Thought he had a great game tonight, and Jets fans should be happy because it's starting to look like at the NHL level, Ville Heinola is getting his feet underneath him.
Yeah, better. This was his best game out of the 10, I think, Sean. And it was an important time for him to get that quality of effort in. Yeah, I liked a lot about his game. And Sean, one of the things, what have we been talking about? Ville's got to get involved offensively. I saw early activation, but not risky activation. That's what you need to see from him. You need to have the trust of the coaching staff that your risk profile is going to be at a reasonable level that does not put you or your defense partner into difficulty. So that's what I saw from him today. This is the kind of game that gets Ville Heinola additional runway after the break. And we know it was important for him to have this type of game because Dylan Samberg is potentially going to be skating on the 27th. That doesn't mean I'm not expecting Dylan Samberg to be playing on the 28th, but he is going to be skating on the 27th, which is important for him as he gets ready to return probably early in the new year. Logan Stanley was on the trip. Again, he's from Ontario. I assume he was on the trip because he was going home to see family after this. Not certain when he'll be back, but I did not see walking boot. So that sore foot is not going to keep him out long term. But I mean, with Hayden Fleury being injured in this game, that gives Hanel an opportunity to potentially see more minutes. I mean, Colin Miller, almost 10 minutes in the third, I think, Sean, 9:29. So that was also an important game for him. I felt like I thought he and Pionk both took separate shifts on their offside. So I think that was an important game for Miller, but I like the way that Hanela played. By the numbers for Hanela today, 19 shifts for 12:55, no shots on net, one missed shot, one takeaway, one block shot. So, anyways, I liked the progression, but quite frankly, Sean, it was time for Villy to take a step forward. I'm not trying to be critical. I know this has been incredibly difficult injuries coming back from. He's missed an inordinate amount of time, but what he's doing is not making himself a liability defensively. Top line media using his speed really well, but also go back there just one second.
He's talking about Kyle Connor.
Oh, sorry.
Situation. Yeah.
Gotcha. Sorry. Yeah. I like the way that Villy is playing defense. There is an aggressive nature to his game. Sometimes that can be risky. Sometimes he's not going to win every battle because he is undersized, but he plays hard and he's doing a nice job defensively so far. Of course, it's an area he has to get better at. Most young skilled players have to get better, but the next step now, he's making the right reads. Now get to be part of the second wave of the offense, Sean, right? That's the next step for Hanela.
Yeah.
For him to start doing more, he'll go from there. Hey, quickly, Zeiss can join us for a couple seconds. Does that be worthwhile? I think we should.
Oh, okay. All right.
No?
Well, it's just that
we got to get our stuff in
earlier in the show. Let's bring him in. We just got to talk about. Okay. Here, bring him in right now. Can you bring him in, or do I have? Oh God, let me get his email if I can here. Okay.
Here, no, I got the email.
Okay, here. We're gonna cover something here. You're gonna talk when I'm done talking, then we'll bring Zeiss in. He'll come in for the awards after this, and he can maybe touch on the back end of this. But I love this comment from earlier on. T. Will says, if there is one guy that makes sure to point out any of Rennie's hot takes, it's Renny. I'm gonna say I love this. It's absolutely true. And I'm gonna bring one up here, Ken. I'm gonna bring one up. Anyone who wants to go in the Kenny and Renny vault and look up some of our old shows. I remember the victory game that the Winnipeg Jets played against the Toronto Maple Leafs. I said that I hated the Winnipeg Jets' response in that game. I said I thought it was poorly done. I said I thought it was arrogant. I said I thought it's the kind of stuff that gets a team like, it's basically, we talk about worrying about people putting, bulletin board material up. Yep. This was something that basically it was celebrating something that did not need that level of celebration and kind of rubbing it in the face. If you're going to say stuff like, is there anything better than beating the Toronto Maple Leafs, try and do it away from the cameras, and definitely don't post it on social media. I thought it showed like a kind of a show us that you've been there before kind of take from the Winnipeg Jets. And I said at the time I didn't like it. I didn't think it would bode well for the Winnipeg Jets. They had lost every single game against the Toronto Maple Leafs since that time, and finally break the curse now. Hand it to Mark Scheifele, who would have been part of that curse happening in that situation there. But again, I stand by what I said way back then. I didn't think that was a good way to handle the situation as they handled it at the time. And I think it was a conversation still to this day with the Toronto media. They were asking Mark Scheifele about it. I think if you went and talked to Toronto Maple Leafs players, they were miffed by that, and it played a role in the domination they've shown over the Winnipeg Jets until now. Ken, am I out to lunch with that? Or was I right way back then, and it took everyone in this chat room until now to figure it out?
Yeah, I have a slightly different take, and I had that night.
You did back then too.
I mean, I'm not throwing it out completely. I just don't know that I don't feel as strongly about it as you, but that's okay. That's not again, and my personal view is what I wrote. I don't think that's something Mark said in the confines of the dressing room 3 years ago.
I thought it was everything, though. I thought it was Stanley's reaction on
Well,
the
the
ice.
victory,
He
whatever. I
was,
mean, that was a
but
wrestling match with Wayne
it's,
Simmons, but
that's what
I got
I'm
no
saying.
problem
It's
with
not
guys
like he
getting
won
fired.
the fight or anything like
I
that.
mean,
I'm
no,
sure.
but I mean,
Yeah,
I've seen lots of guys do crazier things that offended. I don't. If the Leafs were offended by the victory,
I'm not saying offended. I'm just saying they didn't put themselves in a good spot. I thought they painted a big old target on their backs
yeah,
against the team and a fan base that team had been hitting the bullseye of over and over and over again. I don't think people should be surprised that they were doing that, because like I thought the Winnipeg Jets invited that upon themselves by responding the way they did in that game.
yeah. I mean, that's fair to say. I just don't. Again, I think that Mark's actions on the ice, like today, went were far greater than his words 3 years ago. I didn't find the words to be offensive. And Sean, Mark Scheifele wants to win the Stanley Cup, so he wasn't really meaning it as this was, you're with the fellas in the room after. Is there anything better than beating the Leafs on a Saturday night? I mean, I don't think that's, Mark is not aspiring to only beat the Leafs on a Saturday night. They play them twice a year. To me, I think that the words got sort of, I'm not saying they got misconstrued because those were the words.
Yeah, I don't
I
think
just
there's
think that
any misconstruing that.
you think that Mark would rather beat the Leafs and win the Cup?
No, no, no.
Of course not.
I'm
So
saying everything
take it
that
into
they showed
context
in there
then.
was just a real like over
Ah,
celebration
I'm going
of
to tell you
what
right now,
happened in that situation.
the
I
Jets
thought
are
it was
not
a real act like you've been there moment, and the
totally
Jets
fair,
acted
Sean.
entirely like they had never been there, and
I,
it came back to bite them.
I'm going to tell you right now, there are a lot of teams that don't care for the amount of attention the Leafs get based on winning one playoff round since 2004. There's a lot of teams that feel that way. I'm sure a lot of them have said it on in the confines of the room. Not many have said it on camera, but they're not the only team that feels that way.
I'm not sure who can hear who. I don't know if I'm out or if Kenny's out. Can those in the chat room let me know? From my perspective, it looks like Kenny just froze here. If so, that's fine. I can go on. Phyllis, please tell me which of the two of us is frozen.
Sorry, buddy.
There we go. Who's are you frozen or am I? Kenny was out. Okay, good to know. All right. He's gonna pop out and he's gonna come back in. In the meantime, I'm going to go to the Johnson Group Got You Covered play of the game. Someone nailed this earlier. Did I set it aside? If I didn't, I owe them one. But yes, it was Kim Sawchuk who earlier on in the show had said the Johnson Group Got You Covered play of the game. What's that, Ken?
Did you see I sent Zaz's email to you?
I've already sent it along. He'll get it
so
here when he comes in. But are you okay? Are you done disrupting the show? Can I move on?
You can.
Thank you very much. Oh, there's Zeiss right there. Okay, we're gonna get Zeiss to jump in on this right before we move on. Now, Zeiss, we're going to do some awards here. You're going to help us jump in. And by the way, buddy, it is so good to see you. One of my favorite people in the industry. Love that big mug. I'd be giving you a big old kiss on that forehead of yours. Big old Christmas kiss if I was there to see you. But the game, the infamous game that we go back to between the Winnipeg Jets and the Toronto Maple Leafs, Wayne Simmons and Stanley getting in the fight. The Jets really celebrating and leaning in to the celebration of beating the Toronto Maple Leafs on that night. I know there were questions about the curse that had happened to the Jets following that game. They had lost 7 straight against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Can you give me an idea of how the Jets' conduct on that night was perceived in the Toronto market by the Toronto Maple Leafs, and if you think it had any kind of role to play in what's unfolded between these two teams since?
Well, it's great to see you too, but please keep your lips off my forehead. Thank you.
You better be strong enough to fight me off, big boy, because it's coming when I see you.
That would be my best Christmas present, that you don't do that. Okay. I mean, I think maybe there was a little more traction probably in your city than there was here, but obviously you could see tonight that the better that Scheifele did and the harder that he celebrated, the more that the louder the boos got. And what's the old credo? I mean, if you're in a road building and they boo you, you must have been doing something right. So, I mean, I do think it stuck in the craw a little bit. I mean, Scheif is a pretty emotional guy, and you pretty much can see what how much it means to him. But you know what? What's the best way to get the fans' ire riled up? Go into their building and beat them handily. And Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor were the two best players on the ice tonight, and they just crushed. And I'll emphasize this again, crushed any sense of a myth or curse that was allegedly on that team. They quickly swept that under the Gardiner Expressway.
No doubt.
Zies, we were just talking about before you came on, where do you stand on Scheifele? Should have been on the Four Nations team or shouldn't? Either name.
I mean, he was on every mock that I did. I think it's ridiculous that he's not on that team. I can start picking guys, names out of there. And I understand, when you're John Cooper and you have a short tournament like this, you want guys that have chemistry, okay? And that's where, obviously Point was a no-brainer, but Hagel's having a great year, and Anthony Cirelli. But I had forget about being the 13th guy. I had Scheifele on the third line. And it is a little bit of a head scratcher, but no matter what anybody says, it's motivation for him. We all know Scheifele well enough to know this is a guy that, the more emotional he gets, the better he plays. And, Kyle Connor, I'm sure you guys talked about this, but after the game said this is just going to motivate him to get on the Olympic team. And he goes, I guarantee that he'll be on there. And look at right now, he's got 42 points in 36 games. He's on pace to crush his, I love that word crush, by the way. If you haven't noticed, he had 84 points in 2018-19. He's on pace with 42 points in 36 games to crush that career high. And, I do think it fuels him. And I think he wants to show the world, you know what? I'm going to be in Italy in February of 2026 and not in the stands, on the ice. And if he keeps this up, I don't see how they can pass him over.
Yeah, no doubt. We do have to get to some business here. So we're going to get to our Johnson Group Got You Covered play of the game. Zeiss, you can join in if you would like. This is basically, we picked the unheralded play of the game. Ken interrupted me earlier, which he loves to do on this show, Zeiss. Probably it's the same as when we're all out having a couple beers. I'll try and talk with you, and Ken pops his head in between the two of us, hijacks the conversation. He does it here just like he does it in real life. So I'm going to go quick before he does it again. But for me, it's the breakaway, the Mitch Marner breakaway, Neil Pionk. What I love about this is kind of how calmly he basically allows Mitch Marner, who he knows can't look behind him, to think that he's got him beat, right? Like he doesn't sit there and tug on him or like push with his stick. He just kind of goes radio silent. And what he kind of lures Marner into doing is thinking that he's wide open and alone because he's not feeling any pressure anymore. And as soon as he draws the puck back to shoot, it's a stick lift. It's gone. It's a high IQ play. I think a lot of people don't pick up on it. They don't pick up on it because usually they don't understand the idea that on the hockey rink, when you can't see a guy, quite often you can feel him. Neil Pionk takes that sense away from Mitch Marner. And in the end, it's the reason he's able to take away the puck and take away that opportunity from him. Ken, you got something?
Oh, tremendous. And, Sean, this reminded me of the old junior hockey breakaway with a chaser day, right? I mean, the drill, right? I mean, it was, the guy's there, but when is he coming? And Sean, I can guarantee you everyone on press row was wondering when Neil Pionk was going to hook or trip Mitch Marner, and the referee would point to center ice and there would be a penalty shot. It wasn't even a penalty. It was a perfect stick lift. It was nowhere near the hands. He absolutely lifted it right as Marner was going to shoot. It was an exceptional play by Neil Pionk. And again, that's a turning point kind of move.
Well, I'm just 3 points here. Number one, I think you're both right. I think it was an outstanding stick lift by Pionk. That was an outstanding play. And I would say that's the unheralded play of the game. Number two, I want to know how many times you puckered up on Kenny's forehead there. Actually, I don't, so don't answer that.
Zero, don't worry.
Number 3, I thought, when the coach was made available after the game, that Kenny thought he had a one-on-one with him. I was putting my hand to see if I could get a question in.
Besides, normally there's nobody else in the scrum.
You can go to the bathroom. So,
I'm gonna say this, Ken. I'm very happy to have Zeiss here, kind of confirming what we think about the Johnson Group. He's far more amenable than John Garrett, who spent our last podcast tearing down everything that Ken and I said. He was, if it were a court proceeding, the judge would have held him in contempt of court for being a hostile witness. So it's great to have you here, Zeiss. It's also a great take on the Johnson Group got you covered play of the game. Absolutely nails it. And hey, do you run a small business in Canada? Look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. That's going to bring us to the hashtag the keg save of the game. This can go either way. You could go Connor Hellebuck. You could go to the Leafs side of the ice. Zeiss, was there something that stood out to you tonight?
There were a couple stops that Hellebuck made in the first period when the game was still going either way that I thought, it's not really that I can pick one. There was the one where he was looking between his pads, and the Leafs were kind of looking behind him through the mesh to see if the puck had squeezed through there. But I would have to say that one, and you know what I mean, as you guys know, seeing somebody play live is different than seeing somebody on television. It just is. And to watch the way how calm, cool, and collected Connor Hellebuck was is just, you can tell when a guy's on top of his game. And if you would have told me after the playoffs last year who I thought that the starting goaltender for the U.S. should be when we get to the Four Nations in February, I actually would have said Jeremy Swayman, because he was really on a roll. But, and then there, he also had, because the Stars went to the third round, there was a lot of backing of Ottinger. But I'll tell you one thing. He's left those two guys in the dust.
Yes.
Hellebuck, right now is the best goalie on the planet, and certainly the best goalie on Team USA. And, for being up here in Canada where, I had a chat, a Kenny like one-on-one with Patrick Waugh on Saturday morning. And we were talking about, Canada's goaltending situation. And his comment was, it's kind of sad to see what's happened in that regard. And for Patrick Waugh to use the word sad, I mean, that carries some weight. So just wondering, I mean, how fast can, Ottinger and or Swayman get their green cards so we can put them in net for Canada. Ask Marty Brodeur and Patrick Waugh now if they'd consider coming out of retirement. I don't think I've ever heard two men laugh as hard as they did when they heard that question.
No doubt. The crazy part, Zeiss, is it's basically been to get to this stage outside of Carey Price, who was drafted, if I'm correct, 2005. It's been an absolute desolation for 2 decades now of Canada's inability to produce a goaltender to get us to this point. And now I don't want to take away from the guys who are there. And I'm a believer that when you get a lot of these goalies that are going in for Team Canada, especially a guy like Montembeault, I don't know if he'll play, but I'd be very interested to see what Montembeault would look like behind a really solid defensive team. But I don't think that goaltending is going to be as big an issue as people are making it out to be for Canada. But the fact of the matter is, it used to be a hotly debated issue of who was going to be in net for Canada, because like the States have right now, there were just so many great options. To get to the point that we're at right now, we are shy a star, and it's taken 2 decades to get here.
Well, here's a point though. Okay. A pro Canada point. Where's the final going to be held?
Is it in the States? Boston, yeah, okay.
Boston, yeah.
Where did Jordan Binnington have the best game of his career? Game 7.
Yeah, God, that's a long time ago, Zeiss. That's a long time ago.
I think it's going to be Hill, and Hill plays in front
I
of a
think
very
it'll be
good
Hill.
defensive, structured team. But
I think Hill will do just fine. To be honest with you, I think he's going to do just fine. Yeah.
But I mean, to your point in Zeiss, Zeiss, like the third stringer used to be a Hall of Famer, Eddie Belfour. Now the third stringer is a guy who's barely been in the league as a starter. So I mean that's a massive difference. My keg save of the game, Sean, Connor Dewar, breakaway Hellebuck. It makes the initial save, and then gets the pad down for the rebound.
I'm just gonna go with Zeiss's because
you should.
I'm going with Zeiss. That's how it's going to go. That for me was my keg save of the game. But in the end, as good as Zeiss put it there, it doesn't matter what he thinks or you think, Ken, or I think. It matters what the folks at home think. Share with us your hashtag of the keg save of the game. You're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg. Each location finer than the last. And our winner from our last show, that would be Leslie Mitchnick. Leslie, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me an email. I will have the fine folks at the keg send you a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg. Each location finer than the last. Because we've already gone over our allotted time, Ken, I'm just going to really lean into it here because I want to ask Zeiss about this. I know the Montreal media came into town. They asked Scott Arniel a question about Connor Hellebuck and the way that he's playing. And clearly, you've got the shutouts, you've got the goals against, you've got the save percentage. He's leading the league in all these different categories here. He was asked, and to me, it's one of these things, and you'll get this. You've covered markets before where people come from the outside the market, and they ask questions that are very much built on a stereotype, right? And sometimes these stereotypes are hard to get rid of. And the Montreal media came in, and they asked Scott Arniel if the Jets lean on Connor Hellebuck too much. Arniel bristled at the question because he had said and responded, listen, there's nights that he's really great for us and we owe him the victory. But there's a lot of nights that Connor Hellebuck has played this year, and a lot of them have been shutout nights for him, that the Winnipeg Jets have made his job pretty darn easy on him. I described the front of the net and the way that the Jets defense made it hard for the Leafs players to get to the front of the net once there was a rebound there trying to get to that. I described it as trying to run a 100-meter race through a thicket, like through thick, dense woods. That's what it was like. I wonder your takeaway tonight, because this is one of those nights where I agree with you 100%, and this is one of the things that makes Connor Hellebuck special. He makes saves look easy. He looks really prepared. He's there before the guy can even take the shot. But I would think tonight was a good example of a night where if someone took a look and said, it's not just Connor Hellebuck, this team plays pretty great defense in front of that goaltender. I'm wondering what you saw in that respect tonight.
Well, no, I agree with you there. And first of all, for your save of the game, don't you get style points taken off because it was Connor Dewar? I mean,
wow, no, Connor.
No offense.
Sorry, Connor, if you tune into this episode of Kenny and Renny, sorry. I don't know if we thought Mikey was going to go after you like that.
Before you throw me under the team bus, okay? I'm just saying that if it was...
Hey, he's from Manitoba, buddy. Easy. It's a guy from the paw here. Easy on the dissing.
Winnipeg, but here you go. Okay, it wasn't Nylander and it wasn't Marner. Okay, it was Connor Dewar, and I'm not saying that he can't score, but look at when you compare their career totals. Okay,
for sure, yeah.
I'll be the analytics guy now. I agree. Joking aside, I agree with you guys about how they clog in front of the net, and it's interesting because that is more the style that Craig Berube has brought to the Maple Leafs this year, and I mean. They, coming into the game, were in the top 3 or 4 teams in least amount of goals allowed in the NHL. When's the last time you could say that about a Toronto Maple Leaf team? So
yeah,
we've seen them play that style. But the way the Jets have been playing it this year, I mean, is very, 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 very impressive. And I agree with you. Like it's not him standing on his head every night.
Yeah, well, I'll say this. I agree, and it's funny at the beginning of the year, and I still go back to it. I think I'm in a pretty good position. I called an Eastern Conference final of the New Jersey Devils and the Toronto Maple Leafs this year. I did with the Maple Leafs largely on the idea that Craig Berube was going to make this a harder team to play against, which I thought if you are able to take that skill that the Leafs have and add that element of being more defensively responsible, more committed to that, and Berube is just you're either going to get that or it's going to be a problem. I think I like what he's done with the Toronto Maple Leafs this year. That said, I thought the Leafs made it way too easy for the Jets to get to the front of the net tonight. On Scheifele's second goal, his guys got him, and then he looks away and just lets Scheifele skate to the front of the net. I don't think this was the best example tonight of the Leafs making life tough on their opposition getting to the front of the net, because the Jets were just there over and over and over again with pretty free reign. Anyways, time to turn to our TCB Lamplighter of the game. That's our goal of the game. We'll start with you, Ken, to give Zeiss a little bit of time to mull through that. What did you think was the best goal of the game?
Yeah, I mean, I love the 2-on-1 play, Scheifele to Connor, but sorry, I'm definitely going with the Velarde backhand sauce to Scheifele for his goal. So that's what I'm going with. There were a lot of options tonight.
I got to agree with Ken. I mean, anytime you get the backhand sauce, okay, who doesn't want a little sauce on the holidays, okay?
There you go.
That was a magnificent pass. And, I've been really impressed with Velarde. Obviously, we know about his injury issues from a year ago, but he's picked it up full scale. And that first line that the Jets have, I think John Tavares said it in his post-game availability. That's as good a first line as you'll find in the league.
Yeah.
And there's some good ones. Just look no further than Colorado and Edmonton. And if I have to name the names for the people on those lines, I'm not really sure they're really big hockey fans anyways. Couple of McDavid, McKinnon. You guys heard of them?
I have. We've seen them once or twice live.
I saw one of them coming out of junior at some point. I don't know. Not sure. Hey, you mentioned the sauce. Everyone wants a little sauce. Reminds me of maybe the cowboy butter I had on my steak back on my birthday in 2022 in Denver, where we all got together. And Zeiss went out of his mind and bought like 1,000 expensive bottles of wine to celebrate me. I believe, Zeiss, if I do remember correctly, that's where the kissing on the forehead started. I was so thankful that night. So Zeiss just...
and ended, hopefully.
Hey, if you folks don't know it now, Zeiss, one of the all-time good guys that is universally beloved in the league. Great to have you back on the show here. You're not done yet. We're going to the TCB Lamplighter, or sorry, you guys have done it. I got to add mine in here. The play that starts with Josh Morrissey pushing the puck up ice and heading over, and then they get the puck to the front of the net. Jam that goes to him. Right? I know that it's not as nice as that one, but the play that Josh Morrissey makes there, someone online had said today they thought it was maybe the best game they had ever seen Josh Morrissey play. I wouldn't say that, but I would say everything when you go to Toronto, the eyes, the focus is a little bit brighter. The spotlight is a little bit brighter. If people don't, I've had a lot of conversations about the Team USA versus the Team Canada roster. And a lot of focus is always kind of put on, the defense or the goaltending for sure. I find outside of this market, when the two defenses are compared, it just seems like when I talk to people outside this market, Josh Morrissey is constantly kind of underrated. We know in this market from covering him what the Winnipeg Jets have in Josh Morrissey, and more so what Team Canada has in Josh Morrissey. I think he's going to show out in that tournament. I think he's going to impress people. He is a sickeningly sturdy defensive presence and has been able to add an element to his game that is not as flashy as you will find with a Cale Makar or a Quinn Hughes, and yet largely just as effective. Josh Morrissey is a star in this league right now. I thought he showed that tonight with that goal, but it really doesn't matter what I think. It matters what you think at home, folks. Tell us what your hashtag TCB Lamplighter of the game was. You will automatically be entered to win a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. You can't wait for Kenny and Renny and Zeiss to gift you your own 8-pack. You know what to do. Head on down to TransCanada Brewing Company. Join them in their tap room at 11290 Kenniston Avenue. Lots of lampies, lots of blueberries, lots of great beer. And you know the pizza is the best in the city, and the atmosphere is like no other. Get down there over the holidays if you can. You will thank Kenny and Renny for that. Hey, Ken, if you want to ask Zeiss anything before we go, let's do it.
Well, what are your thoughts on Josh Morrissey's eyes? I know you watch him plenty of time. Do you think he's going to have a breakout moment at the Four Nations as well as Sean and I do?
I definitely do. And I think he was a slam dunk to make the team. And if
totally
people don't think, again, as strongly as I feel about Scheifele should have been on the team, I feel even stronger that Morrissey was just a slam dunk. And it's just been really, really interesting to see his game grow in the past 2-3 seasons, where he is now, to me, one of the top 5 or 6 offensive defensemen in this league. People that I think people are naive about him, to your point. And I just think that's an aspect of that in the spotlight of the Four Nations. I think a lot of people will finally see just how good this kid really is. But for me, like I said, for the past 2 years, he's been a slam dunk.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, I forgot to mention it here, but James in the Peg is the winner from our last show of the TCB Lamplighter. So you know what to do, James. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me an email. I will send you a voucher for a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. Let me tell you what so many know out there now, after Kenny and Renny has handed out so many 8-packs for so many years. It is the nectar of the gods. Any last what?
8-pack.
8-pack. Yes.
We don't know from 8-packs in Ontario.
Well, there you go. Hey, we do things a little differently here. Like we understand how good Josh Morrissey is in this market, unlike some of the people in some other.
Zeiss knows.
Oh, of course, Zeiss knows. Zeiss also knows the next time he makes it down to see us here in Winnipeg that he will be coming down with Kenny and Renny over to TCB to try out that pizza and try out the nectar of the gods himself and a lot of the other stuff. It's going to be nice the next time we get to see you. Zeiss, I just want to say it is always a pleasure to catch up with you. I'm a little jealous that Kenny gets to spend some time with you there, but I know where your heart lies, and it will lie with me until the next time we see each other. I'm a very confident person in that.
To answer that, my heart, flawed as it is, a year ago at this time and through Christmas, I was in ICU for heart and kidney issues, and it's a hell of a lot nicer being on with you guys than lying in a bed breathing through tubes. So I'm very grateful, to be doing anything, let alone being on the show with you. But I'm even more grateful that, you two are wonderful friends, and, try not to get too emotional, but you were there at the scariest part of my life and supporting me, and I'll never forget. And I love you both. And that does not give you the green light to kiss my forehead whenever you want.
It's too late. Too late.
I love both you guys.
Love you too, buddy.
There's lots of people around when times are good, but when times are bad, you find out who's in your corner. And you two were, and love you for it. And I forgot, Shawnee, you owe me some good wine, just like Kenny does. Let's go.
For sure. Well,
I'll take an 8-pack of Camus. Thanks.
Well, that's basically what you bought that night on my birthday. That was crazy. I'm going to tell you, if you can, next time you make it to Winnipeg, I've got a big fat wine fridge down here that you and I will absolutely obliterate. But I did want to talk on the point that you made. Of course, Zeiss, you were going to get that response from Ken and I. I will say this. I'm a big believer in supporting people, and love trumps hate and all those kind of things. And Mike, you don't just make people feel welcome, you make them feel loved in this industry. And I'll tell you this, as a guy who grew up reading you and seeing you perform and watching you on television, a guy that that I idolized, before I got into this industry. To become friends with you was one thing, but I'm going to tell you something, Zeiss. The very first playoff game I ever did, you and I and Mark Askin were sitting down in the bowels of the St. Louis Blues building, and you went to bat for me, basically talking about how crazy you thought that I wasn't getting more on-air opportunities. And I know that means something coming from a guy of your stature. I know people take notice and they listen in situations like that. I was agog when you did it, because I honestly didn't think I was deserving of the praise that you heaped on me. And let's be honest, I was not deserving of it. But the fact that you were able to lie for me in that situation just means so much. So Zeiss, love having you on the show. Really appreciate it. Kenny, I'm sure, has something to say.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you how Zeiss stops people in his tracks, not just because he's a big guy. As we were walking up to the press box today, Sean, who stops when he sees Zeiss other than Hall of Famer Daryl Sittler, who I met for the first time today? So this is a guy who universally loved and respected, and has been in my corner from a very long time, and I appreciate him very much also, Zeiss. Great to see you, my man. We're happy to see you healthy, and we love you, and we can't wait to get you down to the peg here.
Is this the cue to start for the three of us to start singing?
It's the kiss to the forehead is coming. No better place to be than swimming in Zeiss's wake.
Right. What's up, Ken? We got one quickie here. Sorry, one more.
Give Sweet Lou a shout out.
Yeah, you bet. For folks who have realty needs you'd like to have met during the holiday season, contact our main man, Sweet Lou Ferlin at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU at LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including our podcast.
All right, this love fest has to end, although I'm glad we had the biggest love fest
Beautiful.
heading into the holiday season. This was really good stuff. Zeiss, you kicked ass as you always do. Ken, always love doing this with you. You're my partner. It's
Merry Christmas.
See you through Christmas. Folks in the chat room, we always love having you here. 3,484. I'm just going to make up a number, but so many of you in there. We appreciate you joining us as you always do. And I will say this and close this out before we say Merry Christmas. If you appreciate the conversations happening in this space, we implore you to appreciate the contributions by our sponsors who fight to keep this conversation going in this space. For us, that's Vittorio Rossi, Pristine Roofing, Cambrian Credit Union, Sweet Lou Ferlin, Arctic Spas, the Johnston Group, TransCanada Brewing Company, and the Keg. Thank you to them. Thank you to all of you. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. The best of the season to each and every one of you. Love each other. It's the best way to go through this life. We'll see everybody after the next one. Bye-bye.